What type of go-to-market is right for your teams? We're going to talk about 6 types in today's episode of Closing Time. Hey everyone, my name is Chip House. I'm CMO here at Insightly, and welcome to Closing Time. Today I'm super excited because I'm joined by Sangram Vajre, and Sangram is somebody I've known for a long time. He's a 3-time author. He's the founder of Terminus and the recent co-founder of GTM Partners. Welcome, Sangram.
Thank you so much, Chip. Let's talk about this go-to-market motion.
Yeah, I'm pumped to talk about it. So, in the research that you've done, in the writings you've done, you've broken down the different types of go-to-market, and you have 6 different types. It's interesting because you and I chatted before, and is there really just one go-to-market motion that somebody can have, or can they have all 6, or how do they shape together?
Well, so this is a great question. We get this all the time as an analyst firm. Our job is to really help companies figure out what go-to-market motions would work for them. And this is a question, which is what is the one thing, what is the one silver bullet that will solve all the pain? And everybody knows the answer is no, there is no silver bullet. To just quickly go through them, now we have added one more go-to-market, so there are about 7 now. So we have inbound, outbound, product, channel, event, community, and ecosystem. So those are the 7 different go-to-market motions, and we added that as part of our research lately. Most companies in our research shows that they have at least 2, if not 3, go-to-market motions working at the same time. And that might mean one is really, really good, but as a company that want to excel in 2023, got to experiment with at least one or more of go-to-market motions. It's never one.
Yeah, so I know just on at our own company at Insightly Sangram, we have inbound, we have outbound, we have events, we have PLG because we have a self-service product, and probably others that we're still building out. In fact, events for us, because we're kind of come off of COVID, is somewhat nascent, but we had some great events last year, and tons of awesome virtual events. So if I'm new to this concept, right? Where do I start to think about, what's my best go-to-market motion, and what should I prioritize?
Now, it's a great question, Chip, because most companies are either listening to this might say, okay, hey, Chip has 4 go-to-market motions. We need to have 4 too. And that's when it goes wrong. Like, that's not the way to model this. The way to model is that as a company, what are you really good at? So events is not something every company is good at. Salesforce is exceptionally good at that thing. That's what they really, really. Mark Benioff is a marketer. So they're exceptionally good at it, and they have perfected that model. That doesn't mean every company has to grow through that. A really out of on the curveball and example is a community-led go-to-market. Maybe what companies should think about right now more than ever is how do you build communities? And you and I are part of so many communities that have now turned into real communities. As a matter of fact, Outreach acquired Sales Hacker. Like, they acquired a whole community because they wanted to be a community-led go-to-market motion. So we have to take a moment and look at it like, what are our strengths? Where are we really, really good at? And more importantly, where can we find the best customers? So as a marketer, if you're selling to marketing, maybe events is a good way to go because marketers typically attend events. But if you are doing maybe developer, maybe it's a more online thing. Maybe they want to do it differently than how a marketing might want to engage. So we got to look at our buyer persona at the same time. What are our skill set? What is our superpower as a company that we can do really, really well at? That's where you start excelling it instead of trying to say, well, let me check all the boxes on the go-to-market motion slide.
So diving in a little bit deeper here, Sangram. So looking at what you've written about these different channels. So Inbound-Led, I think, is probably going to be most familiar to a lot of people, that are watching today. So marketing harvest demand via paid, organic, social, email to qualify and route leads to sales. Super common motion for B2B, right? And the second one, outbound as well, right? I think that's kind of the legacy sales motion, right? And you helped evolve the world, by the way, with your approach to ABM and helped sales and marketing teams work together. PLG, product-led growth, has emerged and is really popular with some companies. Let's drill into that one a little bit because I'm curious to get your take. in what situations is PLG appropriate? Because I think for a lot of organizations, they're leaning hard into inbound, they're leaning hard into outbound or some ABM coordination with the two teams. But talk to me about PLG.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that, Jeb, because we had Atlassian as our last go-to-market roadshow event speaking, and we've spent time with them now since then. And what's interesting and what I'm learning about PLG, because I didn't grow up doing PLG, like, it was inbound, outbound. That's what we did for the last 20 years. So this is new for me too, and I'm looking at how companies have been doing it. And what's interesting is most people think PLG is all about product. And what I learned from Atlassian and learned from a lot of the companies that are doing PLG is that no, they're looking product maybe the starting point for it, but they have a whole go-to-market motion around the PLG for upsell, cross-sell, retention, expansion, going around it. So you still have the same exact principles. You're just doing it differently. You may not be using a full-on sales rep to do every single thing. Now you're using automation to do the exact same thing, or you're monitoring that information much better. So now you know what the usage looks like in order to figure out what new products to create and what to sell. So it's the same exact mindset. So I feel better about myself. I'm like, man, I don't know anything about this. And then when I go in and look at all the thing Atlassian does, I'm like, oh, so you're just automating the same exact concepts to make it easier, better, faster for both the customer and you as a team. Oh, got it. But it's not only about the product, it is the process around it that actually makes it interesting.
Yeah, and marketing might even have a bigger role there because the product experience becomes even more important. And what kind of tool tips and tags and journeys do you put people on inside of your application? And what kind of communications do you send them? And how do I personalize those communications for the different levels or the distance they are through their journey with your product? Are they brand new? Or have they been on it for a while and they're just about to make a purchase, or they've downgraded, or they've sat on it for months,
Yeah.
and so you have to think through all of those different situations, and it could be a heavy lift.
Well, it's also in some ways marketing has now the most insight. You typically in a B2B when you are dependent on sales reps to update the Salesforce field with like, why did we lose this deal or where it's going? Well, you don't have to worry about that. You actually can look at the data and say, oh, I see these three accounts are dropping in usage. So that's a red flag. We need to have our team figure out what's happening with those accounts. So I think you just have more data when you go product led, and it's beautiful. But here's something to think about. Not every company should go PLG. Not every single company should go PLG. There might
Agreed.
be a time where it happens, but not every, just like ABM, we talked about, not every single company should do ABM, because if you can't focus and take the time to curate, and if it's not at least $50,000 deal, and there are not many people in the buying process, you don't need to do ABM. You need to just do better way to get in front of the right accounts. Very different. So PLG, what I'm learning is everybody's jumping on it, but it's not necessarily the best thing for every company.
Right, it has to be the right product, the right price point,
Yep.
and you have to be planful while you're building it to even allow for that. So anyway, we digress, but let's hit the other one. So channel led. So I think that it's super common for companies to have a channel of resellers, but you kind of define it as enablement focused to educate, support resellers, agencies, and certified partners. And should every company have a channel strategy?
Yeah. HubSpot, when we look at it, 60% of their revenue actually comes from all these agencies. So they turn these agencies as a revenue channel for them. So it made perfect sense. I remember this conversation with Brian Halligan and Dharmesh, the founders of HubSpot, when they were investors in Terminus, my other company. So we had been chatting and thinking, they're like, oh, you remind us of our inbound movement, the ABM movement. So we had a lot of fun on that. But what was really interesting when I dug into their data and asked as more questions, they're like, well, look, they had to make a decision at one point, and it's a go-to-market decision. Should we hire a lot more salespeople, or can we train a few agencies? Because all of a sudden they started to see some agencies trying to do it. Should we spend more time over there, or should we hire a lot more CS and sales reps? And at that time, they decided they're going to do a lot more agency work and see what happens, and they will still work on sales team, but they started to test those go to market, both outbound sales rep driven as well as agency driven, and they found that almost 60% of the revenue globally comes from agencies. So they continue to build on that. That's why what you and I just talked about, experimenting with different go-to-market motions, is pivotal in 2023.
Yeah, the cool thing about building a channel is you're basically finding a lot of new companies that become engaged in your story, in your brand, and they help you tell that story, right, in the marketplace, which is pretty exciting. So, similarly, talk to me about ecosystem led, right? So, using things like app exchanges, API driven co-marketing, things like that. So, how do I know if I should pursue that?
Great example of it, simply Apple, where we all are using Apple products in some way, shape, or form, and it forces us to use that particular platform. Where I have seen it work really bad is when people are compelling people to do it without actually having a market share. So where ecosystem doesn't work is when you don't really own the majority of the market share. It just won't work because people are like, why would I do this? This doesn't make any sense. Now, if you're a company, as a category, you are actually owning at least 50-60% of that category, even if it's new, but you're owning that, then ecosystem makes a perfect thing. I would never go with that as a way to jump in it. But if you own it 60-70%, might as well start actually leveraging this whole ecosystem for yourself.
So you said category there,
Yeah.
Sangram. So that's maybe a good segue to the last and maybe most daunting type of go-to-market motion, which is category led, because now you have to lean into thought leadership to truly try to carve out your own brand new category, which I think you did a bit at Terminus, right? I mean, you were an early player in ABM space.
Yeah.
Um, so talk about category led.
Well, so we are rephrasing it and calling it more community led now, more than category,
Okay.
because everybody is talking about category. And unfortunately, just like anything else, it's just, oh, you only a few people can do it. True. We think about the few categories that have been created. You think about Salesforce created a category. You talk about HubSpot created a category with inbound. You think about Gainsight creating a category with Pulse and customer success. You think about Terminus, as you said, for ABM. What's common in all of these categories is community. That's what's common. Each one of them led a community. They created a community that drove people to take an action and say, you know what, we say no to status quo and we're going to go to this path. Salesforce, we say no to this thing, and now we're going to go, instead of on-prem, we're going to go to SaaS model. Inbound, we're going to say no to sales reps, we're going to go inbound model. ABM, we're going to say no to leads and we're going to go accounts, right? So every one of them is literally saying, well, what is our new picture of success, and let's challenge the status quo. So category led, we would distinguish that and say, well, maybe it's more community led. What's common in every good category is someone who's leading the community. That's ultimately would end up, if they do the right way, they're going to end up winning that category.
Makes sense. And what's your final kind of takeaway here? When I think through this, you lay these out there, and nobody can or should be an expert at all of these go-to-market motions, because, as you said, they're just not right for some companies. But what do I do next with this information if I'm a sales or marketing or customer success leader?
Well, the first thing I would do, Chip, is get your go-to-market team, your marketing, sales, CS, product, RevOps. Bring those team members together and say, hey, let's look at this. What do we think we are really, really good at? Something that would be something that we as a company do really good at. And you'll get some honest feedback if your marketing is good and inbound or outbound, and you'll get honest feedback. That is the number one thing. Here's what I say all the time. Being intentional is more important than being brilliant. So don't be brilliant. Don't be saying, well, let's go PLG. Like, no, it doesn't have to be. Be intentional. If you can get your go-to-market team and say, we all care about and we're really good at outbound, then do outbound. Go against the grain. Don't go PLG. Do that, because if you do that well and better than most people, you're actually going to win in the marketplace. Most people are not intentional. They try to be brilliant. And I think the advice that I have for everyone is do the opposite.
That's great advice, Sangram. And thanks so much. What an amazing discussion, and really, really great to have you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You bet. And thanks to all of you for joining on this episode of Closing Time. Hope you enjoyed yourself, and we'll see you at the next one.